It's said that you don't see the cracks until it's too late. That was me, 33-year-old parent, husband, and business owner Lucas Bennett. From the outside, my life appeared to be ideal. A successful plumbing business, an envious wife, a stunning kid, and a house that exuded wealth. However, flawless lives don't end abruptly. No, they quietly corrode from the inside out until everything collapses under the weight of it all. Elena, my 32-year-old wife, was the type of lady who attracted attention. She was tall, graceful, and exuded an air of effortless grace that made her appear invincible. Although she was employed as a secretary at a BMW dealership, she was never viewed as merely a worker. No, she exuded a sense of ownership over the space. And me? She had somehow fallen in love with me. That's what I used to believe anyway. While installing her parents' heating system at their home, I got to know Elena. She had just ended her engagement to Ryan Grant, a troublemaking womanizer and pampered rich lad. When an enraged husband detected the man cheating on his wife, he shot him in the ass with a shotgun loaded with salt, publicly humiliating him. Like wildfire, that news spread across the community. But Elena had been heartbroken. She had created a vision of the life they were meant to lead together, not because she lost Ryan. She decided she had had enough of being the nice girl when things broke. She desired retribution. She wasn't the shy, heartbroken girl that everyone thought she was that first night we went out. She was leaning into me in a way that made my head spin, drinking and laughing. When we finally arrived at my house, she murmured in my ear that she was done waiting to be treated fairly by love. She erased him with me that night. And then, she disappeared. I only heard the stories for a time. Elena was making sure Ryan Grant would never forget what he had lost, partying hard, and riding through guys. Then we met up once more a year later. She informed me that she wanted something genuine and that she was finished with that stage of her life. And I took her word for it. After we began dating, we quickly became the quintessential couple, steady, dependable, and the ones that succeeded. We were married when she became pregnant. It was a good life. I didn't have any cause to question her for years, until the day her history showed up. I can still clearly recall that Wednesday evening. The TV filled the gap between us as we sat on the couch, half watching the news. Our daughter, Maria, had already fallen asleep. The night was intended to be typical. Elena turned to face me, however. Her fingers gripped the hem of her sweater as her face became white. She said, "Lucas, I need to tell you something," in a cautious, quiet voice. I knew right away. That sinking, icy sensation took root in my gut. Even though my hands were already balled into fists, I said, "Go on," in a steady voice. She took a deep breath. "Do you remember Ryan Grant?" I made myself laugh. "The guy who got shot in the ass? Hard to forget." She didn't grin. "He's back," she said, turning her head away. "He was in town for a friend's wedding. He met someone I know, and he asked about me. He asked for my number." There was silence in the room. I ought to have anticipated it. Should have understood that some things never truly go away, regardless of how much time has gone. She confessed. "He called me a few times. We talked. I let out a deep exhale, controlling my rage. And he invited me to Ischia," she continued, but her voice was almost audible. I blinked. "What the hell did you just say?" She gripped her sweatshirt tighter. "He won a free trip. A 5-star hotel. A full week. His wife can't go. He wants me to come with him." I felt the blood in my veins freeze. I said, "You're joking," but I knew she wasn't. I already said yes. Like a sledgehammer, the words struck me. I gazed at her, attempting to interpret her words. You already said yes? It's just a vacation, Lucas," she said as she hurried away. "Just two old friends catching up," I yelled. "Two old friends! That bastard swore he'd sleep with you and rub it in my face. And you think this is just about catching up?" Frustrated, she twisted her face. "That was years ago." My voice was now rising as I asked, "And you think he changed? You think a guy like him just stops being a womanizing piece of shit?" Her breath came out shakily. "His wife knows. She trusts him." I gave a sour laugh. "Does she? Or did he just not tell her?" Elena paused. That little silence was sufficient. I tightened my jaw. Did you even talk to her? No response. I lowered my voice and leaned forward. Do you still love him? She jerked her head up. No, of course not. Then why the hell are you doing this? She paused. That told me everything. I chuckled slowly and hollowly. You're not even denying it. You know exactly what this is. Unshed tears sparkled in her eyes. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip, Lucas. We could never afford this. With a harsh laugh, I interrupted her. So that's what this is about? A free vacation? She pursed her lips, avoiding eye contact with me. I rubbed my cheeks and let out a breath. Fine, go. Startled, she snapped her head up. My heart thumping in my chest, I stood with my hands on my hips. Go on your damn trip. Do whatever the hell you want. Her face briefly lit up with relief, but I wasn't finished. But don't expect me to be here when you come back. Panic took the place of the relief. Lucas, wait, no, I answered firmly. You made your choice, Elena. And now I'm making mine. I sensed a change for the first time in years. I wasn't going to lose this battle. This marked the start of the end. After that night, the silence in our home was oppressive. Elena still made coffee, got Maria ready for school, and woke up, but she avoided talking to me unless absolutely necessary. I also didn't speak to her. The same house haunted us like ghosts. At times, I sensed that she was keeping an eye on me, as if she was waiting for me to decide against going. However, I wouldn't. She had decided. I had also made mine. She made another attempt a few days later while packing her belongings in the kitchen. She said, Lucas, in a quieter, almost beseeching voice, can we just talk about this? I raised my head from my coffee to stare into her eyes. We did, I said. She gripped the counter tighter. You don't understand. I never meant for this to what? I pushed my chair back and yelled. You never meant to what, Elena? Never meant to hurt me? Never meant to get caught? She winced. I shook my head and let out a deep exhale. You said yes to him. You chose this. You don't get to play the victim now. The guilt in her eyes briefly turned to wrath as her jaw tightened. She remarked, You're being unfair. I let forth a sharp, acrid laugh. Unfair? Elena, you're about to spend a week in a luxury resort with your ex, the same guy who swore he'd sleep with you just to humiliate me, and I'm the unfair one? She didn't respond, since she was aware. Even though we shared a bed that night, we could have been miles apart. Her sluggish, erratic breathing was audible to me, as if she was trying to speak but was unsure how. I didn't give a damn. I was finished. She woke up early the following morning. I remained in bed while she packed her final belongings and moved around the room. Then she halted as she got to the door. Lucas? I didn't open my eyes. There was silence between us. Then, she said, Never mind, as the door behind her clicked shut. I heard the front door open a minute later. Then she was gone. I rubbed my face as I slowly sat up. My chest felt constricted, as if someone were squeezing my ribs with their hands. I ought to have been relieved, but I was only angry. Not at her, at myself, for allowing it to progress this far, for first having love for her. For the remainder of the morning, I was confined to my own thoughts, reliving every exchange and every red flag I had disregarded over the years. My phone then buzzed. Clara. I was hesitant to respond. Clara was completely different from Elena. As a single mother raising her 8-year-old daughter, Wilma, who also happened to be Maria's best friend, she resided 4 homes down. Unlike Elena, she had not made excuses for her adulterous husband, whom she had divorced months prior. She never turned around after packing his belongings and tossing them onto the grass. That was something I had always admired about her. There were many aspects about her that I had admired. When I answered the phone, she said, Lucas? Hey, I said in a scratchy voice. She hesitated as if she were picking her words carefully. I heard about everything. She had, of course. Such news did not remain silent for long. Yeah, I whispered. One more pause. Then, are you okay? I exhaled and massaged my temple. Not really. She remained silent for a while. She then made a statement that completely altered the situation. Maria told Wilma you were planning a trip. I blinked. What? To Paris. Euro Disney. I scowled. It finally dawned on me. Maria must have thought I had a trip because she heard Elena discussing hers. She had now informed Wilma. Clara gave a little laugh. Wilma's been talking about it all morning. I think she's more excited than Maria. I leaned back in my chair and let out a breath. A journey, an actual journey. One that wasn't about making a point or fleeing. Maria was the subject of one. About providing her with something positive amid all of this chaos. I took a seat. Clara, I murmured softly, how would you and Wilma feel about coming with us? A moment of quiet fell. Then, are you serious? Completely. A pause. Then she gave a nice, airy laugh. Lucas Bennett, are you asking me on a family vacation? For the first time in days, I grinned. That depends. Are you saying yes? She hesitated only a moment. Then, yeah, she said in a whisper. I think I am. I purchased 4 tickets to Paris that evening. Elena wanted to go on a trip of a lifetime? All right. I would also like mine. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of satisfaction as I stared at 4 plane tickets to Paris, even though I never imagined that I would be the type of man to plan a last-minute trip out of spite. In the arms of a guy who had vowed to degrade me, Elena could enjoy her fantasy on Ischia, give her access to the complimentary beverages, the 5-star views, and the private conversations during candlelight dinners. I had something superior, Maria, Clara. A week filled with joy, laughter, and genuine experiences. Something that was free of charge. Maria was bouncing with enthusiasm the morning before our journey, doing circles around me in the kitchen with her tiny backpack almost knocking her down. With wide eyes, she questioned, Daddy, do you think Mickey Mouse will know my name? I ruffled her hair and grinned. Of course. He probably already has a sign ready just for you. She clutched her backpack to her chest as she gasped. Really? Really? I replied. That was precisely as Clara entered, her lips quivering into a sly smile. As she fiddled with the strap of her own purse, she joked, setting high expectations, aren't you? I gave a shrug. I figure if Elena can get a 5-star island vacation, Maria can get a little magic, too. For a brief moment, Clara's smile wavered, long enough for me to notice. She remained silent, though. I didn't either. The flight went more smoothly than I had anticipated. The whole time, Wilma and Maria were laughing at the in-flight entertainment and secretly planning all the things they wanted to do as soon as we touched down. Conversely, Clara and I sat in the silence between. She eventually leaned over and placed a gentle hand on my forearm. She said, Lucas, softly enough for the girls to not hear, are you okay? I cocked my head to look into her eyes. The flight was not the subject of her inquiry. She had a lot of questions. I let my shoulders drop as I let out a slow exhale. I think I will be. After examining me for a while, she nodded. Good. She took a moment to move her hand. It didn't bother me. I had a different impression of Paris. More vivid, more vibrant. Perhaps because I was younger, broke, and speeding through it with little time to enjoy anything the last time I was here. I had the girls this time. Everything felt fresh because of their enthusiasm. The first 2 days were a haze of expensive ice cream cones, roller coasters, and Disney castles. I never once looked at my phone. Elena never crossed my mind. Not till the 3rd day, however. My phone vibrated as Maria and Wilma were enjoying cups of hot chocolate on the terrace of a tiny downtown cafe after spending an afternoon at the park. A message. From Elena. I gripped the gadget tighter as I gazed at the screen. The change in my demeanor was immediately noticed by Clara, who had been laughing at something Maria had said. She leaned a little forward. Lucas? After a moment of hesitation, I turned the phone over and placed it on the table. Screen down. I whispered, Nothing important. She stared at me for a moment longer than she should have. She then gave a nod. I sat on the balcony that night, watching the lights of Paris spread out below me. After the girls had gone to sleep in the hotel room, I still had the phone in my pocket. I'm still waiting. I took a deep breath and finally pulled it out. Now, there were additional texts. Lucas, please respond. I must explain. It's not what you think, I promise. I came home early, please. We must speak. I tensed my jaw as I gazed at the words. She had arrived home early. Why? Had Ryan thrown her away as soon as things became complicated? Was his wife aware of it? Had she discovered too late that she had sacrificed her family for a false dream? Or was she simply afraid? She was scared because she had lost control for the first time. With a sharp exhale, I combed through my hair. Then I took action that I ought to have taken weeks earlier. I switched off my phone. Elena was able to wait. I had something she couldn't take away from me right now: calm. Long after the city had quieted down, Clara and I sat on the balcony that final night in Paris, enjoying glasses of wine that we had sneaked up from the hotel bar. It was cozy, simple. She then turned to face me, her eyes gentle. "Lucas?" As I took another sip, I hummed. "Are you going to see her?" I took a slow gulp. "Do you think I should?" She remained silent for a while. Then she let out a sigh. "I think you already know your answer. It was a different flight home." I had stopped running. I wasn't upset, I was prepared. Furthermore, for the first time in a long time, as soon as I returned to the city, reality hit me hard. The weight of everything that was waiting for me took the place of Paris's warmth. The streets were familiar, the whispers were low, the stares were knowing. By now, everyone had heard. Everyone was aware. Elena had returned. She was also waiting. I started by dropping Maria off at her house. She talked endlessly about the rides, the characters, and the chocolate croissants, which she insisted were the best she had ever tasted. She was still giddy from the trip. With a stiff face, Elena's sister opened the door while keeping an eye on her. She gave me a look as though she had something to say. However, she didn't. She simply moved out of the way to let Maria in. Then she looked up at me. "She's been a mess, Lucas." I rubbed my temple and let out a breath. "Yeah?" She paused. "Then she knows she screwed up." I sneered. "Is that supposed to mean something to me?" A pause. She shook her head after that. "I guess not." I turned back to my car after nodding. She called after me and said, "She wants to talk. She's waiting for you at the house." At the driver's door, I stopped. I got in and drove away without turning around. I have no idea why I went. For closure, perhaps. Perhaps because there was a tiny, hidden part of me that wanted to see the damage. In any case, I ended up approaching the place I used to call home. She stood outside with her arms encircling her body, eyeing me as if I might disappear if she blinked. I destroyed the engine. A moment of sitting. Then at last, they went outside. She had a new appearance. Not in an exaggerated manner. Not in the manner you would anticipate after everything. Simply said, smaller. As if she had finally come to terms with the consequences of her actions. "Lucas," she said, her voice trembling and her eyes burning. I crossed my arms and leaned against the car. "Elena, quiet." She then stepped forward. "Can we talk?" I remained motionless. "Talk." She wrung her hands and gulped. She paused, letting out a sharp breath. "I came home early, I know." "I didn't," she cracked. She forced herself to look at me after taking a deep breath. "Nothing happened, Lucas." I laughed sharply and without humor. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" She grimaced. "No. I need you to know I didn't cheat on you." I cocked my head to observe her. "So what then?" "You just flew to a 5-star resort with a man who spent years swearing he'd sleep with you, just to sit in separate rooms and sip cocktails?" Her eyes gleamed as she winced. "I was stupid," she said in a low voice. "I was so stupid." I remained silent. She moved closer. "Lucas, I swear I never meant to hurt you." "Yeah?" I whispered in a chilly tone. "Then why did you?" Her shoulders trembled as she let out a quick exhale. I don't know what I thought. I think a part of me wanted to prove something to myself. That I wasn't just a mom, a wife. That I could still be. I finished for her. Selfish. Her eyes sprung up and began to well up with tears. With a sigh, I ran a palm across my face. "Elena, gentler than before, you didn't just hurt me. You blew up our life. You made a choice you knew would break us. And now, what? You regret it?" With silent tears streaming down her cheeks, she nodded. I took a slow breath and turned away. This was the moment I had dreamed about 1,000 times. I had considered everything. I might say, the rage I could vent, and the joy I would have from seeing her fall apart. However, now that I was here, now that she was broken and desperate in front of me, I simply felt worn out, weary, completed. She cried out, "Lucas," and took another step forward. "Please, don't let this be the end. I'll do anything." Then I looked at her, observed her closely, and I had no feelings, no rage, not depressed, no desire to make this right, nothing except emptiness. It was over already. As soon as she said yes to him, it was done. I breathed out slowly. I already filed the papers. Her breath caught as she froze. You'll get them soon, I said in a steady voice. I just came to say goodbye. Her mouth opened, then closed. She stood there trembling for a long time, staring at me as if she had forgotten who I was. Perhaps she didn't. Perhaps I didn't either. She nodded and finally released a weak breath. Okay, she said in a whisper. I returned the nod. Take care, Alina. After that, I turned, got into my car, and drove off. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. I was standing outside Clara's house that evening, my fingers lingering over the doorbell. She opened the door before I had even parked, as if she had been anticipating it. She looked long and hard at my face. Then hesitantly, softly, Are you okay? I let out a breath and combed my hair. I think I will be. She gave me a nod and moved aside to let me enter. Additionally, for the first time in a very long time, it felt weird spending the first few evenings at Clara's residence. Not too awful. Simply put, something different. It didn't feel alien, but it wasn't my home either. Maria ran around with Wilma as if she had lived there her entire life, fitting perfectly in. And Clara, oh, how easy Clara made it. She didn't hover, press, or ask for anything from me. She simply left me alone. And that's precisely what I needed after everything. Elena didn't object to the separation. A week later, the documents signed silently arrived. No irate messages, no last-ditch efforts to persuade me. Nothing but quiet. There was a part of me that had anticipated a spectacular conclusion. But actual life wasn't like that. Things didn't always blow up. They simply faded at times. Clara and I moved slowly. I slept in the guest room at first, but I kept a polite distance. I had to do it, not because she asked me to. Before I could be us, I had to figure out how to be myself again. Clara knew that. She didn't question it. I never felt bad about requesting space. That's how I found out. I knew this was different because of that. We had a bottle of wine on the balcony one evening after the girls had gone to sleep. The stars above us were limitless, and the air was chilly. With those astute eyes, Clara watched me as she swirled the wine in her glass. You seem lighter, she whispered. Taking that into consideration, I sipped slowly. Maybe I am, she grinned. Good. Silence for a beat. Then softly, Are you happy? She inquired. Gazing into the night, I let out a breath. Joyful. I hadn't given the word much thought in a while, but something settled inside of me as I sat there with Clara beside me, solid and stable, with the faint sound of the girls' laughter still reverberating in the air. Yeah, I whispered. I think I am. She looked at me for a while, then she stretched for my hand without saying anything. I also gave her permission. For this was a real thing, something to cling to, something worthwhile to construct. Months went by. The seasons shifted. Wilma and Maria became inseparable, two tiny, chaotic forces that continuously energized the house. Elena and I came to a silent agreement, co-parenting without the animosity and bitterness. Although we weren't buddies, we also weren't adversaries. Just two individuals who had once lived together. Clara, too. Clara was at home. Not in a romantic, eroticism-filled sense. However, during the peaceful times, the quiet moments, she was able to blend in with my environment without trying to do so. She had patience, steady, actual. And I came to a realization one night while I was lying next to her, making languid circles on her naked back. I wasn't simply going on. I was beginning anew. Additionally, this time, the place I was meant to be was right here. I thought I was at last at home. I was in charge. And it would be with someone who genuinely cared this time.